A little goes a long way. I'm sure by now everyone's heard this quote in one form or another, that a little goes a long way. And I'm forced to think about this quote a little bit more this time in light of recent events. So here's a little bit of a story time. I was supposed to graduate with our engineering degree in March of 2020. In my local community, the quarantine started around the same time, right before our graduation was scheduled to happen. So, of course, the responsible thing to do was to cancel the graduation. Now, for a long time, we weren't actually even able to process our clearance to get our diplomas. And it took a while for the infrastructure of the school to catch up with the pandemic. But that is understandable because, everyone is having a difficult time. In light of that, in the recent week, or actually by the posting of this video by tomorrow, February the 13th, there's actually gonna be a virtual graduation. And with this virtual graduation, all of the graduates are supposed to be, part of it. Long story short, I was not part of it. And here's why. So, I did graduate, and I am scheduled to get my TOR and diploma. But the reason why I'm not part of the virtual graduation is something which is very, very idiotic in my opinion. Now, a couple of months back, so like I mentioned before, the infrastructure to get the clearance processed wasn't available for a long time, for a couple of months after the quarantine started, because everyone's adjusting. But then, over the course of a couple of months ago, especially when we're looking for employment during the time of pandemic, we actually processed the clearance. Many of us decided to process the clearance or try to get it processed because we needed that transcript to get a job. And so we did. And a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, actually it's honestly just a couple of weeks ago, there was an update on, there was finally an update on getting the clearance processed. And they included in that update that, hey, if you want to be included in the virtual graduation, please make sure to process or finish processing your clearance by this date. And that was like January 29th or whatever. And I accomplished this. It was all done and whatever. It was through. I was cleared, followed up, sent the follow-up emails to the other people, which I needed to do myself. And we still question why I needed to do that myself, but that's a story for another time. But the question here was that at this time, I already had a job. And it's not a job that I like at all. I do well in the job, but that's not the job that I got a degree for. So understandably, there's a bit of frustration on my end. But that with health issues, the job is stressful. I don't check my email a lot. Now what happened is they apparently sent out a different email telling us that for you to participate in the virtual graduation, not only do you already need to be cleared, but you also need to send us this form to waive your participation or something like that. I read this email just earlier this week because backlog and whatever, and the deadline to submit that form was actually the week before. And mind you, I was already cleared like long before the deadline happened. It was around January. And I'm not sure if it makes sense. You would assume that because they already mentioned beforehand that, hey, if you want to be part of the virtual graduation, make sure that you get cleared, and then you'll be good to go. But then it turns out that no, you're not good to go. You still need to submit this other form. And I think the lessons on this come in two perspectives. Of course, there was fault on my end, but this is what I mean. A little goes a long way. So, the people processing the graduation, or the person who was responsible in our department, or the registrar who was in charge of getting us graduated or following up, a little could have gone a long way. If she knew that there were a lot of people who were cleared, good for the virtual graduation, but did not see that they submitted the form to be part of the virtual graduation, why do we immediately assume that they waived their right to be part of the virtual graduation? Especially since there were even people replying to the thread on the email that she sent out, which were not replied to. But second, of course, a little goes a long way on my end as well, that if when I did get that email and I was able to read it in time, then I would have been able to understand the situation better and understand that we actually needed an additional form to be submitted to actually be part of the virtual graduation. So, long story short is, especially when you're dealing with companies, well, of course, a school is supposed to care about its students. And I'm not saying that my alma mater doesn't, but there's a lot lost in translation. And I guess the thing is, especially because I did get that email in time, but technically I wasn't the one that read it, it becomes my responsibility, and I accept that. But a little goes a long way. And if you actually cared about your graduates, you would actually take the extra step to communicate with them. Especially considering that because the pandemic is going on, I don't actually know what other is there to do. Especially since there are less students in the school, there is less workload, and people aren't required to go to work every single day. And I don't want to sound like an American where I'm ultra entitled to everything. But I think there needs to be a balance between how much care we show to the people we're responsible for and passing the burden on to them. And especially when you send an email and it takes them weeks to respond, I don't think that it's a good show of character, I would say. And I'm not coming from any place of spite. I am a bit disappointed that I'm not part of the virtual graduation, but I'm sure there's some physical graduation scheduled sometime next year. But I think this stands as a lesson of two things. One, communication is the key, and everyone can do a better job at communicating. And second, we need to take responsibility, and that doesn't only go for me, but it also goes for the school. So that's all I have to say on this matter. I'm a bit disappointed about how the turn of events happened, and here's to hoping that we can do better in the future. And I definitely don't think it's beyond us to do better than this. Yeah, that's it. Sometimes we just pull the wrong end of the stick, and sometimes we cause that on ourselves. Just like I said in the previous video, we're not punished for our sins but by them. So in this case, well, yeah, it's my fault for not reading that email in time. But then again, I think that there's also a part of the responsibility to be shared by the administration, since the communication was already implying that, aren't you getting cleared to be part of the virtual graduation? And then, oops, surprise, you're actually not part of it because you didn't submit this form. It's these kinds of technicalities which undermine the relationship that people have with these organizations that say that they care about people, when in fact you're just treated like a statistic. I'm sure that this isn't the worst thing that happened, and I'm sure that a lot of worse things go on. But if we can't do these little things right, how do we expect to do greater things? That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. I still love my alma mater. It's just that exactly because I love my alma mater, we can do better. Thank you. Oh, and I forgot to say, of course, if you like this kind of video, leave a like and a comment would be very appreciated. If you want to ask for more details, we can have a conversation in the comments below. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye now, and stay safe.